The taxi pulls away from Willowbrook Manor, leaving me standing alone on the cobblestone driveway, staring up at the most beautiful wedding venue I've ever seen. Crystal chandeliers gleam through floor-to-ceiling windows, and white roses cascade down marble columns like something from a fairy tale. My navy blue dress, the one I spent 2 paychecks on, suddenly feels completely wrong against the backdrop of such elegance. What I don't know yet is that in the next 6 hours, my younger sister will orchestrate the most humiliating evening of my life, only for a complete stranger to change everything with 5 simple words. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Natalie, and I'm 31 years old. The woman getting married today is my sister Cassandra, and if you asked anyone in our family, they'd tell you she's absolutely perfect. At 27, Cassandra has the kind of life that looks amazing on social media, a successful marketing career, a handsome fiancé named Ryan who adores her, and the ability to make everything she touches turn to gold. She's also spent the last 3 decades making sure I know exactly where I stand in the family hierarchy. I check my reflection in my phone camera one more time, smoothing down my hair and adjusting the simple pearl necklace our grandmother left me. It's the only piece of real jewelry I own, and I'd hoped it might make me feel more confident tonight. Instead, looking at the guests arriving in their designer gowns and expensive suits, I feel like I'm wearing a costume to a play I was never meant to be in. The venue coordinator, a woman with a clipboard and the kind of smile that doesn't reach her eyes, approaches me with quick, efficient steps. "You must be Natalie," she says, checking something off her list. "I'm Jennifer. Your sister asked me to show you to your table." I follow her through the grand entrance, my heels clicking against polished marble floors. The main reception hall takes my breath away, hundreds of white orchids, gold-rimmed glasses catching the afternoon light, and a string quartet playing something classical near the terrace doors. Everything is perfect, elegant, expensive. Just like Cassandra wanted. "Here we are," Jennifer says, stopping beside a small round table tucked behind a decorative pillar near the kitchen entrance. Table 12. I stare at the table, which seats only 4 people and is positioned so far from the main festivities that I can barely see the head table where the wedding party will sit. A small place card with my name sits next to 3 others I don't recognize. Behind me, I can hear the kitchen staff preparing for dinner service, their voices and the clatter of dishes creating a constant background noise. "Is this correct?" I ask Jennifer, though I already know the answer. "This isn't a mistake. This is deliberate." Jennifer glances around uncomfortably. "The bride finalized all seating arrangements personally," she says. "If you'll excuse me, I need to check on the other tables." I sit down slowly, placing my small clutch purse on the white tablecloth. Around me, other guests are finding their seats, laughing and embracing old friends, taking photos with their phones. I watch families gather at large tables near the front, couples holding hands as they admire the floral arrangements, elderly relatives being helped to seats with the best views of where Cassandra and Ryan will sit. At my table, I'm joined by 3 people I've never met, 2 elderly cousins from Ryan's side who seem confused about why they're sitting so far back, and a woman about my age who introduces herself as someone's coworker. We make polite conversation about the venue and the weather while servers weave between tables, bumping my chair each time they pass to and from the kitchen. "Excuse me," I say to one of the servers after my chair gets jostled for the 4th time. "Is there any way to move this table slightly?" The young man looks sympathetic but shakes his head. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The event coordinator said all tables had to stay exactly where they are. Fire code regulations." I nod and smile, because that's what I always do. I accommodate. I don't make waves. I don't cause problems. It's been my role in this family for as long as I can remember. Through the crowd, I catch my first glimpse of Cassandra in her wedding dress. She looks absolutely stunning, the kind of bride that makes other women stop and stare. Her dress is a custom creation that probably cost more than I make in 6 months, and her hair is styled in an elaborate updo that took 3 hours this morning. She's holding court near the bar, surrounded by bridesmaids and relatives, everyone hanging on her every word. Our parents, David and Patricia, stand nearby beaming with pride. Dad has his arm around Mom's shoulders, and they're both glowing with the kind of happiness that comes from watching your child live out their dreams. When someone asks them about their daughters, they always start with Cassandra's accomplishments: her promotion to senior marketing director, her beautiful apartment in the city, her engagement to Ryan, who comes from one of the oldest families in town. I'm usually mentioned as an afterthought, if at all. Oh, and we have Natalie too. She works in, what is it again, honey? Something with computers. She's still figuring things out. I work as a software developer for a small tech company, and I'm actually quite good at what I do. I've been promoted twice in the past 3 years, and my team just launched an app that's been featured in several industry publications. But somehow, my successes never seem to register with my family the way Cassandra's do. A server stops by my table with champagne, and I accept a glass gratefully. The bubbles sting my throat slightly, but the alcohol helps calm the nervous energy that's been building in my chest since I arrived. I take a deep breath and tell myself that I can get through this evening. It's just a few hours. I'll smile, I'll be polite, I'll celebrate my sister's happiness, and then I'll go home to my quiet apartment and my cat and try to forget how small I felt sitting at table 12. But as I watch Cassandra laugh with her friends, as I see the way our parents beam when people congratulate them on their beautiful daughter's perfect wedding, I can't shake the feeling that this evening is going to be much harder than I thought. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The cocktail hour begins, and I watch from my distant table as guests mingle around elegant high-top tables scattered across the terrace. Cassandra glides through the crowd in her stunning gown, accepting congratulations and posing for photos with various groups of friends and family. Every few minutes, I hear her distinctive laugh echoing across the space, bright, musical, and completely captivating. I decide to join the mingling, hoping to reconnect with relatives I haven't seen in months. My first stop is near the bar, where my cousin Rebecca is chatting with her husband and another couple I don't recognize. Natalie. Rebecca exclaims when she sees me, though her smile seems forced. You look nice. That's a pretty dress. Thank you, I reply, smoothing the navy fabric. You look beautiful too. How are the kids? Before Rebecca can answer, Cassandra appears beside us as if summoned by some invisible signal. Oh good, you found each other, she says, slipping her arm around Rebecca's waist. Rebecca, I have to steal you away. There's someone I absolutely need you to meet. Ryan's business partner is here with his wife, and they're talking about investing in that boutique you mentioned. Rebecca's eyes light up with interest, and she allows herself to be led away without a backward glance. I'm left standing alone with Rebecca's husband Mark, who suddenly finds his cocktail fascinating. So, Mark says after an awkward pause, how's work going? Really well, actually. We just launched a new app that's getting some great reviews, and... That's nice, he interrupts, already scanning the crowd for someone more interesting to talk to. I should probably find my wife. You know how these things are. He walks away, leaving me standing by myself again. I move toward another group of relatives, but the same pattern repeats. The moment I join a conversation, Cassandra appears with some urgent need to speak with whoever I'm talking to, or people suddenly remember they need to check on something else. After the third time this happens, I start to notice how deliberate it feels. Cassandra isn't just popular, she's actively managing the social dynamics of her own wedding to ensure I remain isolated. The pattern becomes more obvious during the family photos. The photographer, a cheerful man named Tom, starts with immediate family shots on the marble steps of the manor. Okay, parents and the bride, he calls out, and I automatically start to step forward. Actually, Cassandra says quickly, let's do just parents first, then we'll add people. She poses between mom and dad, their faces glowing with pride as Tom snaps several shots. Beautiful. Now let's add siblings, Tom says, gesturing for me to join them. In a minute, Cassandra says. First, I want some shots with Ryan's parents too. Family merging, you know. She calls Ryan's parents over, and they pose together like they've been one big happy family for years. I stand to the side, watching as the photographer captures what feels like dozens of combinations. Cassandra with both sets of parents, Cassandra with various grandparents, Cassandra with aunts and uncles, Cassandra with the wedding party. Each time I start to move forward, she finds another, quick shot, that needs to happen first. Finally, after 20 minutes, Tom looks around and asks, "Should we get the sister in some of these?" "Of course," Cassandra says, but her tone has changed slightly. "Natalie, come on over." I join the group, but something feels off. Instead of the warm, natural poses from the previous shots, everyone seems stiff. Dad puts his arm around me, but his smile looks forced. Mom keeps glancing at her watch. "Let's make this quick," Cassandra murmurs to Tom. "We need to start the ceremony soon." Tom snaps 3 photos before Cassandra declares, "That's perfect. We got some lovely ones." But I notice he spent more time positioning the flowers than he did on including me in the frame. As guests begin moving toward the ceremony space, I overhear a conversation between 2 of Cassandra's college friends near the ladies' room. "Did you see where they put Natalie?" one of them asks, lowering her voice. "Table 12, right?" the other responds. "Cassie said she had to put her somewhere out of the way because she always gets weird at family events." Something about being jealous. My cheeks burn with embarrassment. Jealous? Is that really how Cassandra describes me to her friends? "I mean, I get it," the first friend continues. "It must be hard being the unsuccessful sister." Cassie said Natalie's still single and working some random computer job. Meanwhile, look at this wedding. Ryan spent more on the flowers than most people make in a year. They walk away, leaving me standing frozen outside the bathroom door. Random computer job. Unsuccessful sister. The words echo in my head as I try to process what I've just heard. The ceremony itself is beautiful. Cassandra looks radiant as she walks down the rose-petal-lined aisle, and Ryan's eyes fill with tears when he sees her. Their vows are personal and touching, filled with inside jokes and promises that make the guests laugh and cry in all the right moments. But I can barely focus on the romance unfolding in front of me. From my seat in the back row, somehow I ended up behind elderly great-aunt Florence who needs a walker. I keep replaying the conversation I overheard. Is that really what Cassandra tells people about me? That I'm jealous and unsuccessful? After the ceremony, as guests head back toward the reception space, Mom approaches me with a concerned expression. "Natalie, honey," she says, "I noticed you seemed a little distant during the photos. This is Cassandra's big day. Try to smile more, okay? People are watching. People are watching." The implication is clear. I'm embarrassing the family somehow just by existing in my current state. Dad appears beside her, adjusting his tie. "Your sister worked really hard to make this perfect," he adds. "Let's just focus on celebrating her, all right?" I nod and force a bright smile. "Of course. It's a beautiful wedding." They seem satisfied with my response and walk away together, leaving me to wonder how I became the problem that needs to be managed at my own sister's wedding. As I watch other families laughing and taking selfies together, as I see the easy affection between parents and their adult children, I start to realize that what's happening to me tonight isn't normal family dysfunction. It's something much more calculated than that. The reception is in full swing by the time I make my way back to table 12. The elderly cousins from Ryan's side have found friends at another table and abandoned their seats, leaving me with just Sarah, the coworker who seems as uncomfortable as I am. We make polite conversation about the centerpieces and the quality of the champagne, but I can tell she's scanning the room for an escape route. Dinner is served with military precision, servers emerging from the kitchen with perfectly plated salmon and roasted vegetables. My table is served last, after I've watched every other table receive their meals and begin eating. By the time my plate arrives, the food is lukewarm, and I notice that several other tables are already being cleared for dessert. "Sorry about the delay," our server, a young woman named Amy, whispers apologetically. "Kitchen said there was some confusion about the serving order." Confusion. I'm starting to suspect there's been quite a lot of confusion tonight, none of it accidental. During the meal, I watch Cassandra work the room like the seasoned professional she is. She stops at every table, spending several minutes chatting with each group of guests, posing for photos, and making everyone feel special and included. Everyone except table 12, which she passes by without so much as a glance in our direction. After dinner, the DJ announces the beginning of the dancing portion of the evening. The first dance is magical. Cassandra and Ryan move together like they've been practicing for months, which they probably have. They chose, at last, by Etta James, and watching them gaze into each other's eyes while surrounded by twinkling lights, I can almost forget about my discomfort and just appreciate the romance of the moment. But the spell breaks when the DJ calls for the father-daughter dance. Dad steps onto the dance floor looking proud and emotional, and he and Cassandra share a beautiful moment to "My Girl" by The Temptations, the same song he used to sing to both of us when we were little. I remember dancing on his feet in our living room, giggling as he spun me around. Now I watch from the sidelines as he whispers something in Cassandra's ear that makes her laugh. The mother-son dance follows, and then the DJ opens the floor to all guests. I consider joining the crowd, but something holds me back. Maybe it's the isolation I've felt all evening, or maybe it's the growing realization that I don't really belong in this celebration the way I thought I did. Instead, I decide to find the restroom and take a moment to collect myself. The Manor's powder room is located down a hallway lined with oil paintings of the estate's previous owners. It's quieter here, away from the music and laughter, and I allow myself a few deep breaths as I touch up my lipstick. That's when I hear voices coming from a small sitting area just around the corner. I recognize Cassandra's laugh immediately, followed by the voices of her maid of honor, Jessica, and 2 other bridesmaids. "I still can't believe you actually put her at table 12, Jessica is saying, and I can hear the amusement in her voice. Right by the kitchen doors, another voice adds. "Every time a server goes by, her chair gets bumped." It's actually hilarious. My hand freezes halfway to my purse. They're talking about me. "You should have seen her face during the family photos," Cassandra says, and her tone is different from the warm, gracious voice she's been using with guests all evening. This voice is sharper, more calculating. She kept trying to step forward, and I kept finding reasons to delay including her. Poor Tom had no idea what was happening. "The seating chart was genius," Jessica responds. "Putting her with those random people nobody knows, right where she can hear all the kitchen noise. How did you even think of that?" "Easy," Cassandra replies, and I can practically hear her shrug. I know exactly which buttons to push with Natalie. She's always been desperate to fit in, to feel important. So I make sure she feels the opposite. My stomach drops to my feet. This isn't happening by accident. This isn't poor planning or unfortunate coincidences. Cassandra has deliberately orchestrated every humiliating moment of this evening. "But why?" one of the other bridesmaids asks. "I mean, she seems nice enough. A little awkward, maybe, but..." "Because she doesn't deserve to be here," Cassandra cuts her off, her voice turning cold. "This is my day. My moment. And I'm not going to let her sad, pathetic energy drag down the whole event. Look around, everything is perfect. The flowers, the music, the venue, the guests. I worked for 2 years to make this flawless, and I'm not letting anyone ruin it. Even your own sister," the bridesmaid presses gently. "Especially my own sister," Cassandra snaps. "Do you know how exhausting it is, having someone in your family who just exists? Who never accomplishes anything significant, never has anything interesting to contribute, but expects to be treated like she matters just because we share DNA." The words hit me like physical blows. I press my back against the wall, my heart pounding so loudly I'm afraid they'll hear it. "Natalie has spent her entire life being average," Cassandra continues. "Average grades, average job, average everything. No boyfriend, no real achievements, no interesting stories to tell. She's like this gray little shadow that follows our family around, and everyone just tolerates her because they have to." "That seems harsh," Jessica says quietly. "Is it harsh, or is it honest?" Cassandra challenges. "Tonight is about celebrating love, success, beauty, achievement. Natalie represents none of those things. So yes, I made sure she knows her place. I put her where she belongs, in the background, out of the way, irrelevant. There's a pause, and then one of the bridesmaids speaks up. What about the bouquet toss later? She'll have to participate in that, right? Cassandra's laugh sends chills down my spine. Oh, I have special plans for the bouquet toss. You'll see. It's going to be the perfect ending to a perfect evening. Cassie, you're terrible, Jessica says, but she's laughing. Remind me never to get on your bad side. Too late for Natalie, Cassandra replies. She was born on my bad side. I hear the rustle of fabric and the click of heels, indicating they're moving back toward the reception. I wait until their voices fade completely before I dare to move from my hiding spot. My hands are shaking as I finally make it into the restroom and lock the door behind me. I stare at my reflection in the ornate mirror, trying to process what I've just heard. The navy dress I spent 2 paychecks on suddenly looks cheap and ill-fitting. My carefully applied makeup can't hide the hurt and shock written across my face. Every strange interaction from tonight suddenly makes perfect sense. The isolated table placement, the delayed photo inclusion, the way conversations died when I approached, the cold shoulder from relatives who usually at least pretend to be happy to see me. None of it was accidental or coincidental. My own sister spent months planning not just her wedding, but my systematic humiliation at her wedding. I think about all the times over the years when I've made excuses for Cassandra's behavior. When she had forgot to invite me to her engagement party, I told myself she was just overwhelmed with planning. When she didn't ask me to be in the wedding party, I convinced myself she was trying to keep things small and intimate. When she seemed distant during our few pre-wedding conversations, I assumed she was just stressed about the details. But this reveals something much darker. This isn't stress or oversight. This is calculated cruelty from someone who sees me as less than human, as an embarrassment to be managed rather than a sister to be loved. I pull out my phone and see that it's only 8:30. The reception is scheduled to go until midnight. 3.5 more hours of this. 3.5 more hours of being the family disappointment, the gray shadow, the pathetic sister who doesn't deserve to be here. For a moment, I consider calling an Uber and simply leaving. I could send a text later about feeling sick, about a work emergency, about anything other than the truth. I could escape this beautiful venue and go home to my quiet apartment, order takeout, and try to pretend this evening never happened. But something stops me. Maybe it's pride, maybe it's stubbornness, or maybe it's the growing realization that running away would just prove everything Cassandra said about me. That I'm weak, forgettable, irrelevant. I straighten my shoulders and take one last look in the mirror. Whatever Cassandra has planned for the bouquet toss, whatever final humiliation she's crafted for her perfect evening, I'm going to face it. I'm going to survive this night, even if it kills me. What I don't know yet is that in the next hour, everything is going to change in a way I never could have imagined. I stand in that ornate bathroom for what feels like an eternity, staring at my reflection and trying to make sense of what I've just learned. My sister doesn't just dislike me, she actively despises me. She sees me as a burden, an embarrassment, something to be hidden away and managed like a family secret. The realization cuts deeper than I expected. All these years, I've been telling myself that Cassandra was just competitive, maybe a little self-centered, but ultimately she was still my sister. I've made excuses for her behavior, convinced myself that underneath it all, there was love there. Family loyalty. Some basic level of care. But what I heard in that hallway wasn't the voice of someone who loves me but struggles to show it. It was the voice of someone who genuinely believes I don't deserve to exist in her world. I think about all the times I've accommodated her over the years. When she borrowed my car for 3 months in college and returned it with a dent she never acknowledged. When she told our parents I couldn't make it to her housewarming party, without asking me first, because she wanted to keep the guest list curated. When she scheduled her engagement dinner on the same night as my work presentation that I'd been preparing for months, then acted hurt when I couldn't attend. Every time, I told myself I was being the bigger person. The mature sister. The one who kept the family peace. But now I see it differently. I wasn't being mature, I was being a doormat. And worse, my willingness to always step aside, always accommodate, always put her needs first, has enabled this behavior. I've trained her to treat me as disposable. The bathroom door rattles as someone tries the handle, reminding me that I can't hide in here forever. I splash cool water on my wrists and take a deep breath. I need to make a decision about how to handle the rest of this evening. Option 1, I could leave. Call a taxi, make my excuses, and disappear into the night. Go home, order Chinese food, and spend the rest of the weekend processing this revelation in private. It would be safe, quiet, and probably the path of least resistance. Option 2, I could confront Cassandra directly. March up to her in front of all her guests and tell her exactly what I overheard. Expose her cruelty publicly and finally stand up for myself after 3 decades of being pushed around. Option 3, I could stay and endure whatever final humiliation she has planned, smile through it all, and maintain the family facade. Continue being the accommodating sister who never makes waves, never causes drama, never rocks the boat. As I consider these options, I realize that each one represents a different version of myself. The first is the version who runs away from conflict. The second is the version who matches cruelty with cruelty. The third is the version I've been my entire life, passive, accommodating, invisible. But standing here in this bathroom, having heard my sister describe me as a gray shadow who doesn't deserve to be treated with basic human dignity, I realize there might be a fourth option. One I've never considered before. What if I stayed, but refused to play by her rules? What if I stopped trying to earn approval from someone who's determined never to give it? What if I stopped shrinking myself to make her feel bigger? What if I simply existed as myself, unapologetically, regardless of how she responds? The idea terrifies me and thrills me in equal measure. For 31 years, I've been trying to fit into the space my family has carved out for me, the quiet, forgettable daughter who doesn't cause trouble. But what if that space was never meant to contain the fullness of who I am? I think about my job, which Cassandra dismisses as some random computer thing. I'm actually a senior software developer at a growing tech company. I've led 3 major projects in the past 2 years, and my work has been featured in industry publications. I'm good at what I do. Really good. I think about my apartment, which my family sees as evidence that I'm still figuring things out. It's actually a beautiful 1-bedroom in a converted historic building, with original hardwood floors and a view of the city skyline. I saved for 2 years to afford the down payment, and I'm proud of the space I've created. I think about my life outside of family events, the book club I organized with my neighbors, the volunteer work I do teaching coding to high school students, the weekend hiking trips I take to explore trails around the state. I have friends who value my opinions, colleagues who respect my expertise, and hobbies that bring me genuine joy. The person Cassandra described in that hallway, the gray shadow with no achievements or interesting stories, that's not who I actually am. That's just who I become when I'm around my family, when I'm trying so hard to avoid conflict that I forget to be myself. But what if I stopped forgetting? A knock on the bathroom door interrupts my thoughts. "Excuse me," a voice calls. "Is everything all right in there?" "Just a minute," I call back, taking one last look at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me has the same face I've always had, but something in her expression has changed. There's a determination there that wasn't present an hour ago. A sense of resolve that feels both foreign and familiar. I unlock the door and step back into the hallway. The sounds of the reception wash over me, laughter, music, the clink of glasses, conversations blending together into a warm buzz of celebration. For the first time all evening, instead of feeling excluded from the festivities, I feel separate from them by choice. I make my way back toward the reception hall, but instead of hurrying to table 12, I take my time. I stop to admire the floral arrangements I rushed past earlier. I notice details about the venue's architecture that I was too anxious to appreciate before. I move through the space like someone who belongs here, because I've realized something important: I do belong here. Not because Cassandra wants me here, but because I'm a member of this family whether she likes it or not. When I reach the main reception area, I don't immediately return to my isolated table. Instead, I approach the bar and order a glass of wine, something better than the house champagne I'd been drinking. The bartender, a friendly man in his 30s, makes conversation as he pours. "Beautiful wedding," he comments, handing me the glass. "Yes, it is," I agree, "and for the first time tonight, I mean it. My sister has exquisite taste." "The bride is your sister? That's wonderful. You must be so proud." I pause, considering how to answer. 6 months ago, I would have launched into effusive praise about Cassandra's accomplishments, her perfect relationship, her successful career. I would have made myself smaller to make her seem bigger. Instead, I simply smile. She's certainly created a beautiful celebration. As I sip my wine, I scan the room with new eyes. I see the same elegant decorations, the same well-dressed guests, the same magical lighting. But I also see something I missed before, the intense effort required to maintain this level of perfection. Cassandra hasn't stopped moving all evening. She's been managing every detail, controlling every interaction, orchestrating every moment to ensure her vision comes to life exactly as planned. It's impressive, certainly. But it also looks exhausting. From across the room, I catch sight of her near the gift table, gesturing animatedly to the wedding planner about something. Even from a distance, I can see the tension in her shoulders, the tight smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. This perfect wedding isn't just a celebration, it's a performance, one that requires constant vigilance to maintain. And suddenly, I feel something unexpected: pity. Not the self-pity I've been wallowing in all evening, but genuine sympathy for my sister. What kind of person needs to orchestrate the humiliation of their own family member to feel good about themselves? What kind of insecurity drives someone to spend months planning not just their wedding, but elaborate ways to make their sister feel small? This realization doesn't excuse her behavior. It doesn't make the cruel words I overheard any less hurtful. But it does help me understand that her actions say more about her than they do about me. I've been giving her power over my self-worth for 31 years. I've been waiting for her approval, her recognition, her love. But someone who can speak about their own sister the way she spoke about me tonight isn't capable of giving those things. Not because I'm unworthy of them, but because she doesn't have them to give. The DJ's voice interrupts my thoughts as he announces that dinner will be served momentarily. Guests begin making their way back to their tables, and I know I need to return to table 12. But this time, I'm not going back as the ashamed, isolated sister who's been trying all evening to become invisible. I'm going back as someone who has finally decided to stop apologizing for taking up space in the world. Whatever Cassandra has planned for the rest of the evening, whatever final humiliation she's crafted to cap off her perfect wedding, I'm going to face it as myself. Not the diminished version of myself that I become around my family, but the full, complete, accomplished woman I actually am. It won't be easy. 31 years of conditioning doesn't disappear in a single evening. But for the first time in my life, I'm more interested in my own approval than in hers. And that changes everything. I'm walking back toward table 12 with my new sense of resolve when I notice a man standing near the terrace doors, looking almost as out of place as I feel. He's tall, probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair and the kind of quiet confidence that suggests he's comfortable in his own skin. Unlike most of the other male guests who are clustered around the bar or engaged in animated conversations, he's observing the room with a thoughtful expression. What strikes me most is that he's alone. In a room full of couples and family groups, he stands by himself without seeming desperate to change that fact. There's something refreshing about his self-containment that draws my attention. As I watch, Cassandra approaches him with her wedding-perfect smile. Even from a distance, I can see her turn on the charm, the head tilt, the animated gestures, the way she positions herself to show off her dress to its best advantage. The man listens politely, nods at appropriate moments, but his body language remains reserved. Professional, even. After a few minutes, Cassandra moves on to other guests, and the man returns his attention to the room. That's when our eyes meet across the space. He gives me a small nod of acknowledgement, not the kind of forced social smile that strangers exchange at weddings, but something more genuine. Like he sees me as a real person rather than just another wedding guest to network with. I find myself walking in his direction, though I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe it's my new determination to stop hiding in the shadows, or maybe it's simple curiosity about the only other person here who seems comfortable being alone. Beautiful venue, I say when I reach him, gesturing toward the terrace where string lights create a warm glow against the evening sky. It is, he agrees, extending his hand. I'm Harrison. Harrison Blake. Natalie, I reply, shaking his hand. His grip is firm but not aggressive, and he doesn't hold on too long the way some men do. Are you a friend of Ryan's? Business associate, he clarifies. We've worked together on a few projects. I have to admit, I don't know many people here tonight. Something in his tone suggests he's perfectly fine with that fact, which I find oddly comforting. That makes two of us, I say. Though I suppose I have different reasons for not knowing anyone. Harrison raises an eyebrow, inviting me to elaborate without being pushy about it. There's something about his quiet attention that makes me want to be honest. I'm the bride's sister, I explain. But we don't exactly move in the same circles. Ah, he says, and I can see understanding dawn in his eyes. The family member who doesn't quite fit the mold. The accuracy of his observation surprises me. Something like that. How did you know? Experience, he says simply. I have a brother who's a successful surgeon. Very accomplished, very social, very everything our parents hoped for. I'm a freelance consultant who travels most of the year. At family gatherings, I'm usually the one standing alone wondering how I ended up there. There's no self-pity in his voice, just matter-of-fact acceptance. It's refreshing to meet someone who doesn't feel the need to apologize for not fitting into expected family roles. What kind of consulting? I ask, genuinely curious. Technology implementation for small businesses. I help companies transition their systems to more efficient platforms. He pauses, studying my face. Let me guess, you work in tech too? Software development, I confirm, surprised by his accuracy. How did you know? The way you asked the question. Most people's eyes glaze over when I mention technology consulting. You looked interested. For the first time all evening, I'm having a conversation with someone who seems genuinely engaged with what I have to say. We talk about our respective work for several minutes, and Harrison asks intelligent questions about the projects I've been leading. He doesn't look around the room while I'm speaking or give me the impression that he's waiting for someone more interesting to join us. Your sister mentioned you work in computers, he says eventually, and I realize he must have been listening during Cassandra's earlier introduction. She did? I'm surprised Cassandra mentioned me at all to her new business contacts. She said you were still figuring things out, with some kind of technical hobby. Harrison's expression suggests he doesn't quite buy this characterization. But from what you've just told me about your work, that seems inaccurate. The diplomatic way he phrases it makes me smile. Cassandra has her own way of describing things. Family dynamics can be complicated, he says carefully. Then, after a pause, I couldn't help but notice you're sitting at a table pretty far from the action. I feel heat rise in my cheeks. Table 12. Next to the kitchen. Right. Harrison nods thoughtfully. I'm at table 8, which apparently is where they put the business associates who aren't quite family friends. Want to know something interesting? What's that? I saw the original seating chart when I checked in earlier. Table assignments were posted on a board by the guest book. Your name was listed at table 3. My stomach drops. Table 3? Front and center, with what looked like immediate family. Harrison's voice is gentle but matter-of-fact. The wedding planner seemed flustered when I asked about it later. Said there had been some last-minute adjustments to accommodate dietary restrictions. The room seems to tilt slightly around me. Cassandra didn't just isolate me, she deliberately moved me from the family table to the worst seat in the house. And then she made sure I knew it was intentional. I'm sorry, Harrison says, noticing my expression. I probably shouldn't have mentioned it. No, I'm glad you did. I take a deep breath, feeling my new resolve strengthen rather than crumble. It confirms something I've been realizing about tonight. Before Harrison can respond, the DJ's voice booms across the reception hall. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention please. The bride has asked me to make a special announcement. We turn toward the main area where Cassandra stands next to the DJ booth, microphone in hand, looking radiant under the spotlights. The room falls quiet, and I have a sinking feeling about what's coming next. Thank you all for being here to celebrate this perfect evening with Ryan and me, Cassandra begins, her voice carrying easily across the room. But before we continue with the festivities, I want to take a moment to talk about family. I notice Harrison watching me carefully, as if he senses something significant is about to happen. Marriage isn't just about two people falling in love, Cassandra continues. It's about bringing families together, about celebrating the people who shaped us into who we are today. And I'm so grateful to have most of my family here tonight. Most of my family. The slight emphasis on most isn't lost on me, or apparently on Harrison, who frowns slightly. I especially want to acknowledge my sister Natalie, Cassandra says, and suddenly the spotlight swings toward table 12, finding me in its glaring circle. Natalie, would you stand up please? My heart starts racing. This is it, whatever final humiliation she has planned. Every instinct tells me to remain seated, to refuse to participate in whatever performance she's orchestrated. But I think about my decision in the bathroom, about refusing to hide in the shadows anymore. I stand slowly, blinking in the bright light, aware that hundreds of eyes are now focused on me. Harrison steps slightly closer, a gesture of solidarity that I appreciate more than he probably realizes. Natalie has always been such an inspiration to our family, Cassandra continues, her voice dripping with the kind of sweetness that barely conceals poison. She's shown us all that it's okay to take your time figuring out life, that not everyone needs to follow traditional paths to happiness. The words sound supportive on the surface, but I can hear the subtext clearly, and I'm sure others can too. She's painting me as a late bloomer, a work in progress, someone still searching for purpose while she's achieved everything. In fact, Cassandra continues, Natalie is such a free spirit that she's chosen to remain single and focus entirely on her career. She's proved that a woman doesn't need a man to be fulfilled. More poison wrapped in progressive language. She's making my single status sound like a lifestyle choice rather than simple circumstance, while simultaneously highlighting her own marital success. So let's all raise our glasses to Natalie, Cassandra concludes, lifting her champagne flute high. For showing us that there are many different ways to find happiness in life. The room erupts in polite applause, and I stand there in the spotlight, feeling like a specimen being examined. I could sit down now, accept the backhanded compliment, and let the moment pass. That's what the old Natalie would do. Instead, I reach for the microphone that a nearby server is extending toward me. Thank you, Cassandra, I say, my voice surprisingly steady as it carries across the now silent room. That's very kind of you to say. I pause, looking out at the sea of faces watching me expectantly. In that moment, I make a choice that will change everything. You know, you're absolutely right about taking your own path in life, I continue. I've learned that the most important thing isn't meeting other people's expectations, it's being authentic to yourself. And I've also learned that the people who truly love you will celebrate your successes rather than diminish them. The room is completely silent now. Even the waitstaff has stopped moving. So here's to all of us finding the courage to be ourselves, completely and unapologetically, I say, raising my wine glass. And here's to surrounding ourselves with people who see our worth even when we forget to see it ourselves. I meet Harrison's eyes as I say this last part, and I see something that looks like admiration in his expression. The applause that follows is different from the polite clapping that greeted Cassandra's speech. It's warmer, more genuine, and it lasts longer than I expected. I hand the microphone back and sit down, my heart pounding but my spirits surprisingly high. That was brilliant, Harrison says quietly as the spotlight moves away and conversations resume around us. Was it? I'm still processing what just happened. You just turned her passive-aggressive compliment into a statement about authentic self-worth, he observes. And you did it with complete grace. As if summoned by our conversation, Cassandra appears at our table, her smile brittle around the edges. "Natalie, that was unexpected," she says, her voice tight with controlled irritation. "I hope that's not a problem," I reply evenly. "Of course not. It's your night too." The lie comes easily to her, but I can see the frustration in her eyes. Whatever reaction she was hoping for, genuine confidence wasn't it. Harrison extends his hand to Cassandra. "Harrison Blake. I don't think we were properly introduced earlier." "Oh yes, Ryan's business friend," Cassandra says dismissively, barely glancing at him. "I hope you're enjoying the party." "Very much," Harrison replies. "Your sister and I have been having a fascinating conversation about technology and career development. She's quite accomplished." Something flickers across Cassandra's face, surprise, maybe, that someone is genuinely interested in talking to me about substantial topics. "Well, I should get back to my other guests," she says after an awkward pause. "Enjoy the rest of your evening." As she walks away, I realize something important has just happened. For the first time in my life, I didn't shrink when Cassandra tried to diminish me. And more importantly, I had an ally who witnessed it. After Cassandra walks away, Harrison and I return to our conversation, but something has shifted between us. The brief confrontation we just witnessed has created a sense of partnership, like we're allies in territory that might become hostile at any moment. "That was interesting," Harrison says, watching Cassandra's retreating figure. "She really doesn't like it when you speak up for yourself, does she?" "It's not something I do very often," I admit. "Usually I just accommodate." "Why?" The question is direct but not judgmental. I consider how to answer. "Because it's easier. Because it keeps the peace. Because..." I pause, realizing I'm about to say something I've never articulated before. Because I've spent so long trying to earn her approval that I forgot I don't actually need it. Harrison nods thoughtfully. Family approval can be a trap. You keep changing yourself to fit their expectations, and eventually you forget who you are without their validation. His words resonate deeply. "Is that what happened with your brother?" "For a while, yes. I spent my 20s trying to prove I was as successful as he was, just in different ways. It took me years to realize that competing with him was missing the point entirely." Harrison takes a sip of his drink. "The real question isn't whether you can beat them at their own game. It's whether you want to play their game at all." Before I can respond, the DJ announces that dancing will resume, and couples begin making their way to the dance floor. Harrison glances toward the music, then back at me. "Would you like to dance?" he asks. Fair warning, I'm probably better at analyzing software problems than I am at following a rhythm. I find myself smiling. I think I can work with that. We move toward the dance floor, and I'm surprised by how natural it feels. Harrison wasn't lying about his dancing skills. He's competent but not flashy, focused more on making sure I'm comfortable than on impressing anyone watching. For the first time all evening, I'm genuinely enjoying myself. As we move to the music, I notice other guests glancing in our direction. Some looks are curious, others surprised. I realize that seeing me with an attractive, well-dressed man who's clearly enjoying my company doesn't fit the narrative Cassandra has been crafting all evening. "You know," Harrison says as we sway to a slower song, "I have a confession to make." "What's that?" "This isn't entirely coincidental. Me talking to you tonight, I mean." I pull back slightly to look at his face. "What do you mean?" "I overheard part of a conversation earlier. Some bridesmaids talking about how the bride had strategically seated her sister where she'd be isolated and uncomfortable." Harrison's expression is serious. It bothered me. A lot. My stomach tightens. "You heard them talking about me." "I did. And I've been watching how you've been treated tonight. The delayed photos, the distant table, the way people seem to be avoiding you." He pauses. I recognize the pattern because I've lived it. I'm not sure how to feel about this revelation. Part of me is embarrassed that my humiliation was obvious enough for a stranger to notice. But another part is grateful that someone saw what was happening and cared enough to do something about it. So this is pity? I ask, trying to keep my voice light. No, Harrison says firmly. This is recognition. And maybe a little righteous anger on your behalf. He guides us through a simple turn. I hate watching bullies operate, especially when they're family members who should know better. The honesty in his voice convinces me he's telling the truth. What did you plan to do about it? Nothing dramatic. Just make sure you had at least one person here who was genuinely interested in talking to you. Someone who could see past whatever story was being told about you. Harrison smiles slightly. Though I have to admit, you've handled this evening much better than I expected. You mean my impromptu speech? That, and the way you've carried yourself. A lot of people would have either left by now or caused a scene. You've managed to maintain your dignity while still standing up for yourself. As the song ends, we're approached by an older couple I don't recognize. The woman has kind eyes and the sort of genuine smile that immediately puts people at ease. Excuse me, she says to Harrison. You're Ryan's colleague, aren't you? Harrison Blake? I am, Harrison confirms. And you are? Dorothy Blackwood, Ryan's aunt. This is my husband George. She turns to me with interest. And you must be Natalie. Cassandra's sister. That's right, I say, bracing myself for another awkward interaction. But Dorothy surprises me. I've been hoping to meet you all evening. Ryan mentioned that you work in software development. How fascinating. George and I have been struggling to modernize our small business, and we've been looking for someone who might be able to help us understand our options. For the next 15 minutes, I find myself in an engaging conversation about business technology solutions. George and Dorothy own a chain of 3 boutique hotels, and they're dealing with exactly the kind of integration challenges I solve regularly in my work. They ask thoughtful questions, take notes on their phones, and seem genuinely impressed by my suggestions. This is incredibly helpful, Dorothy says. Would you be willing to consult for us? We'd pay your regular rates, of course. I'd be happy to discuss it, I reply, pulling out one of my business cards. It's been months since I felt this professionally confident at a family event. Wonderful. Dorothy examines my card. Oh, you're with TechFlow Solutions. I've heard excellent things about your company. As they walk away, I realize that Harrison has been quietly listening to the entire conversation without interrupting or trying to redirect attention to himself. When I look at him questioningly, he shrugs. You clearly know what you're talking about, he says. I was learning something. Over the next hour, Harrison and I are approached by several other guests. Some are business associates of Ryan's who become interested when they learn about my work. Others are family friends who seem surprised to discover that the quiet sister has substantial professional accomplishments and interesting perspectives on various topics. Each conversation builds my confidence a little more. I find myself speaking more freely, sharing stories from my work that I normally keep to myself at family events. Harrison facilitates some of these interactions, making introductions and asking questions that showcase my expertise, but he never dominates the conversations or makes it about himself. You're good at this, I tell him during a brief lull between conversations. At what? Making people feel comfortable. Drawing out their best qualities. I pause. Is this what you do with your business clients? Similar principle, Harrison agrees. Most people are more capable than they think they are. They just need someone to create the right environment for their abilities to show. Around 9:30, I notice Cassandra watching us from across the room. She's standing with her maid of honor Jessica and another bridesmaid, and their body language suggests they're discussing something serious. Every few seconds, one of them glances in our direction. I think we're being analyzed, I tell Harrison, nodding toward the group. He follows my gaze and chuckles. I imagine they're trying to figure out what happened to their evening's entertainment. What do you mean? You were supposed to be the sad, lonely sister sitting by herself at table 12. Instead, you're having engaging conversations with successful business people and dancing with someone who's clearly enjoying your company. Harrison's expression grows more serious. That doesn't fit the story they wanted to tell. Before I can respond, the DJ's voice cuts through the room again. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for one of my favorite wedding traditions, the bouquet toss. All single ladies, please gather on the dance floor. My stomach drops. This is it, whatever Cassandra has planned for her final humiliation. The special plans I overheard her discussing with her bridesmaids earlier. You don't have to participate, Harrison says quietly, reading my expression. Yes, I do. The words surprise me as I say them. If I don't, she wins. She gets to point out that I was too scared or too bitter to participate in a harmless tradition. And if you do participate? Then whatever happens, happens on my terms, not hers. Harrison studies my face for a moment. Do you trust me? The question catches me off guard. Yes, I think I do. Then go join the other women. But don't try to catch the bouquet. What? Trust me, Harrison repeats. Just stand there and let whatever's going to happen, happen. Don't reach for it, don't move toward it. Just observe. I'm not sure what he's planning, but something in his tone convinces me to follow his advice. I make my way to the dance floor where about 15 other women have gathered. Most are in their 20s and early 30s, giggling and playfully jostling for the best position. I stand slightly to one side, following Harrison's instruction not to compete for the bouquet. Cassandra takes her position at the front of the group, her back to us, bouquet held high. She looks radiant in her wedding dress, every inch the beautiful bride living her perfect moment. Are you ready, ladies? The DJ calls out. A chorus of yes rises from the group. I remain silent, watching. Here we go. Cassandra draws her arm back. 1, 2. On 3, she spins around suddenly, her eyes finding mine with laser precision. The bouquet leaves her hands in a perfect arc, flying directly toward my face with unmistakable intention. It's not a random toss, it's a targeted throw designed to hit me in the most awkward way possible. But I remember Harrison's advice. Instead of ducking or trying to catch it, I simply stand still and watch the bouquet approach. Just before it reaches me, Harrison appears beside me as if from nowhere, stepping smoothly into its path and catching it with casual grace. The room erupts in surprised laughter and applause. Harrison bows theatrically, then turns to me with an exaggerated formal gesture. I believe this belongs to you, he says loudly enough for nearby guests to hear, offering me the bouquet with a flourish. The crowd cheers even louder. Someone whistles. I accept the flowers, feeling my face flush with something that might actually be happiness. Cassandra stands frozen, her expression a mixture of shock and fury. Her perfect moment has been transformed into something entirely different, a playful, romantic gesture that makes Harrison and me look like the evening's most charming couple. As we walk off the dance floor together, I lean close to Harrison's ear. How did you know to do that? I didn't, he admits with a grin. I just figured that whatever she was planning, it probably involved making you look foolish. So I thought we should make you look graceful instead. The bouquet incident seems to have shifted something fundamental in the room's dynamics. As Harrison and I make our way back to our table, I notice conversations pausing as people watch us pass. But instead of the pitying glances I've been receiving all evening, these looks carry curiosity and even approval. That was quite a save, says Ryan's cousin Marcus, intercepting us near the bar. Harrison, right? We met during cocktails. That's right, Harrison confirms, shaking the man's hand. Marcus, this is Natalie, Cassandra's sister. The software developer, Marcus says, and I'm surprised he remembers this detail. My company has been looking for someone to help us upgrade our customer management system. Would you mind if I gave you a call next week? As I hand him my business card, I catch sight of Cassandra watching from across the room. Her maid of honor Jessica is whispering urgently in her ear, but Cassandra's attention is fixed entirely on our interaction. For the first time all evening, she looks genuinely unsettled. I should probably go congratulate the bride, Marcus says, glancing toward Cassandra. She looks like she needs some positive attention. After he walks away, Harrison and I settle at a table near the dance floor. Several other guests approach over the next few minutes, some wanting to discuss business opportunities, others simply making friendly conversation. Each interaction builds on the previous one, creating a momentum that feels entirely different from the isolation I experienced earlier. This is surreal, I tell Harrison during a brief lull. 3 hours ago, I was practically invisible. Now people are seeking me out. You were never invisible, Harrison corrects. You were just being systematically excluded. There's a difference. Before I can respond, our parents approach the table. Dad looks uncomfortable, the way he always does when family tensions become obvious to outsiders. Mom's expression is harder to read, part concern, part confusion. Natalie, honey, Mom begins, sitting down across from us. People are starting to ask questions about things. What kind of things? I ask, though I suspect I know. About why you were seated so far from the family. About the seating change. Dad clears his throat nervously. Mrs. Henderson mentioned that she saw the original chart, and your name was at table 3. So word is spreading about Cassandra's deliberate manipulation. I feel Harrison's presence beside me, steady and supportive, as I consider how to respond. What would you like me to tell people, Mom? I ask carefully. Well, we thought maybe you could just smooth things over. You know how Cassandra gets when she's stressed. Mom's voice carries the familiar plea for me to be the reasonable one, to accommodate, to keep the peace. How does she get? The question comes from Harrison, his tone politely curious but with an edge that makes both my parents look uncomfortable. I'm sorry, who are you exactly? Dad asks, clearly not appreciating the interruption from a stranger. Harrison Blake, he replies, extending his hand. I work with Ryan. I've been getting to know Natalie this evening, and I'm curious about these family dynamics you're describing. Mom and Dad exchange glances. They're not used to outsiders questioning the family narrative, especially not outsiders who seem genuinely interested in my perspective. Cassandra's always been particular about having things just so, Mom explains weakly. She's a perfectionist. I see, Harrison says. And moving her sister from the family table to an isolated spot by the kitchen, that was perfectionism? The directness of the question hangs in the air. Dad shifts uncomfortably while Mom looks genuinely distressed. There must have been a misunderstanding, Dad says finally. Cassandra wouldn't deliberately. She would, I interrupt quietly. And she did. Both my parents stare at me in shock. In 31 years, I've never directly contradicted their narrative about Cassandra's behavior. Natalie, that's a serious accusation, Mom says, her voice rising slightly. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. I take a deep breath, feeling Harrison's supportive presence beside me. I overheard her talking to her bridesmaids earlier. She was bragging about isolating me, about making sure I felt excluded and irrelevant. You must have misunderstood, Dad begins. She called me a gray shadow who doesn't deserve to be treated like I matter, I continue, my voice gaining strength. She said I represent everything unsuccessful and pathetic, and that she wasn't going to let my sad energy drag down her perfect wedding. Mom's face goes pale. She didn't say that. She did. Word for word. I meet her eyes steadily. Along with several other things that made it clear this evening's treatment wasn't stress or oversight. It was calculated cruelty. Dad looks stricken. Honey, even if she said something in the heat of the moment. This wasn't heat of the moment, Dad. This was planned. The seating change, the photo delays, the isolation, all of it was orchestrated to humiliate me at her own wedding. An uncomfortable silence settles over the table. My parents seem to be processing information that challenges everything they've believed about their daughter's relationship. I don't understand, Mom says finally. Why would she do something like that? Because she can, I reply simply. Because for 31 years, everyone in this family has enabled her to treat me however she wants without consequences. That's not true, Dad protests, but his voice lacks conviction. Isn't it? I ask. When was the last time anyone told Cassandra that her behavior toward me was unacceptable? When has anyone ever asked her to apologize for anything she's done to me? Harrison remains silent, but I can feel his attention focused entirely on our conversation. Having a witness to this exchange somehow makes it easier to speak the truth I've been avoiding for decades. We've always tried to treat you girls equally, Mom insists. No, you've always tried to keep the peace by asking me to accommodate her. There's a difference. Before either parent can respond, Cassandra herself appears at our table. Her wedding dress rustles as she approaches, and her smile looks strained around the edges. Family meeting, she asks, her tone artificially light. What are we discussing? Actually, Dad says, standing up, we were just asking Natalie about some concerns that have been raised about tonight's arrangements. Cassandra's smile falters slightly. What kind of concerns? The seating change, for one, Mom says, her voice hesitant. People are asking why Natalie was moved from table 3 to table 12. Oh, that. Cassandra waves dismissively. There were dietary restrictions to accommodate. I had to shuffle some people around. What dietary restrictions? I ask calmly. Cassandra's eyes narrow. Excuse me? What dietary restrictions required moving me specifically from the family table to the table by the kitchen doors? I don't remember the details, Cassandra says, but her voice has lost some of its confidence. There were a lot of last-minute changes. Harrison speaks up for the first time since Cassandra arrived. I'm curious about something. When you introduced Natalie to me earlier, you mentioned she was still figuring things out with some kind of hobby. But she's actually a senior software developer with significant professional accomplishments. Why the mischaracterization? Cassandra looks genuinely surprised that someone is challenging her directly. I didn't mischaracterize anything. I was just being modest about family members' achievements. By calling her successful career a hobby? Harrison presses. That seems less like modesty and more like deliberate diminishment. I don't know who you think you are, Cassandra says, her composure finally beginning to crack, but this is my wedding, and these are family matters that don't concern you. You're right, Harrison agrees. They don't concern me. But watching someone systematically humiliate their own sister does concern me as a human being. The word humiliate hangs in the air like an accusation. Dad looks stricken, Mom appears close to tears, and Cassandra's face flushes with anger and embarrassment. That's ridiculous, Cassandra says, but her voice is rising. I haven't humiliated anyone. Natalie is being overly sensitive, like always. Like always? I repeat. So this is a pattern you're admitting to? I'm not admitting to anything because there's nothing to admit, Cassandra snaps. You're the one making a scene at my wedding, trying to turn everyone against me with some victim narrative. I'm not trying to turn anyone against you, I say quietly. I'm just finally telling the truth about how you treat me. The truth? Cassandra's laugh is sharp and brittle. The truth is that you've spent your entire life being jealous of everything I've accomplished, and now you're trying to ruin my perfect wedding because you can't stand seeing me happy. The accusation is so far from reality that it actually makes me feel calmer rather than more upset. I'm not jealous of you, Cassandra. I'm disappointed in you. Disappointed? She looks genuinely stunned by this response. I'm disappointed that you're so insecure about your own achievements that you need to diminish mine to feel good about yourself. I'm disappointed that you think success is a zero-sum game where my accomplishments somehow take away from yours. And I'm disappointed that you've turned your own wedding into an opportunity to hurt someone who's never done anything but love and support you. Cassandra opens her mouth to respond, but no words come out. Around us, I notice that nearby tables have gone quiet, guests pretending not to listen while obviously hanging on every word. This is my wedding day, Cassandra finally says, her voice smaller than before. This is supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Then maybe you should have spent it celebrating your marriage instead of orchestrating my humiliation, I replied gently. For a moment, Cassandra looks genuinely lost, like a child who's been caught in a lie and doesn't know how to get out of it. But then her expression hardens again. You know what? Fine. You're right. I did move your seat. I did want you to feel excluded. Because you don't belong at the main table with people who have actually accomplished something meaningful with their lives. The admission hangs in the air like a bomb that's just exploded. Mom gasps audibly. Dad stares at Cassandra in shock. Even Harrison looks surprised by her willingness to say the quiet part out loud. Cassandra, Mom whispers, how could you say something like that? But Cassandra is too far gone to back down now. Because it's true. Look at her life, Mom. She's 31, single, living in a studio apartment, working at some tech company nobody's ever heard of. Meanwhile, I've built a successful career, married an amazing man, and created this beautiful celebration. Why should she get the same treatment when we've achieved completely different things? The cruelty in her words is so naked, so undisguised, that it actually shocks everyone into silence. This isn't stress or perfectionism or wedding day jitters. This is who Cassandra really is when the mask comes off. I think, Harrison says quietly into the silence, that tells us everything we need to know about tonight. The silence that follows Cassandra's admission stretches so long it becomes uncomfortable. Around us, the wedding reception continues, music playing, servers clearing tables, other guests chatting and laughing, but at our table, it's as if time has stopped. Mom stares at Cassandra with an expression I've never seen before, something between heartbreak and horror. Dad is the first to speak, his voice hoarse with emotion. Cassandra, I don't even know what to say to you right now. Don't you dare lecture me, Cassandra snaps, but her earlier confidence is cracking. I'm the one who planned this entire wedding, who made everything perfect, who brought honor to this family. And all anyone can talk about is poor Natalie and her hurt feelings. Honor to this family? Mom's voice is barely above a whisper, but it carries more authority than I've ever heard from her. Is this what you think honor looks like? Deliberately humiliating your own sister at your wedding? She humiliated herself by being so pathetic that everyone felt sorry for her, Cassandra retorts, but even as she says it, she seems to realize how awful it sounds. Harrison stands up slowly. I think I should give you some privacy to work this out as a family. No, I say quickly, surprising myself. Please stay. He looks at me questioningly. You're the only person here tonight who saw me as I actually am, instead of who they expected me to be. I meet his eyes. I'd like you to stay. Harrison nods and sits back down. Cassandra looks furious at this development. This is a private family matter, she insists. You made it public when you decided to humiliate me in front of 200 guests, I reply calmly. Harrison has been more supportive tonight than anyone in my actual family. The truth of that statement hangs in the air. Mom flinches as if I've slapped her. Natalie, Dad begins, we had no idea that Cassandra was. Yes, you did, I interrupt. Maybe not the specific details, but you knew. You've both known for years how she treats me, and you've chosen to look the other way because it was easier than dealing with the conflict. That's not fair, Mom protests, tears starting to form in her eyes. Isn't it? How many times have you asked me to just let it go when Cassandra did something cruel? How many times have you told me to be the bigger person instead of asking her to be better? Dad clears his throat uncomfortably. We were trying to keep the family together. By sacrificing one daughter to appease the other, I say. The words come out matter-of-factly, without anger, which somehow makes them more devastating. Ryan appears at our table, looking concerned and confused. Is everything all right over here? People are starting to ask questions. Cassandra immediately switches back to her public persona, though it's noticeably less polished than before. Everything's fine, honey. Just some family drama. You know how it is. But Ryan doesn't look convinced. His eyes move from Cassandra's tense expression to our parents' obvious distress to my calm but resolute face. Actually, Ryan says carefully, I've been hearing some concerning things tonight. About seating arrangements and other issues. What kind of things? Cassandra asks, but her voice has lost its confidence. Mrs. Henderson mentioned seeing Natalie's name at table 3 on the original seating chart. And several of my colleagues have been asking why my new sister-in-law was seated so far from the family. Ryan's tone is diplomatic but firm. I'd like to understand what happened. There were last-minute changes, Cassandra says quickly. Dietary restrictions, space constraints, lots of moving parts. What dietary restrictions required moving Natalie specifically? Ryan asks, echoing my earlier question. Cassandra opens her mouth, then closes it again. She's trapped by her own lies. There weren't any, I say quietly. Cassandra moved me because she wanted me to feel excluded and unimportant. She's admitted as much. Ryan stares at his new wife in shock. You deliberately isolated your own sister at our wedding? It wasn't like that, Cassandra stammers. She's making it sound worse than it was. How was it then? Ryan asks, and I can hear genuine disappointment in his voice. Before Cassandra can answer, Jessica, the maid of honor, approaches our table. She looks nervous and keeps glancing around as if checking to see who might be listening. Cassie, she says urgently, we need to talk. People are asking questions, and I don't know what to tell them. What kind of questions? Mom asks. Jessica hesitates, clearly uncomfortable. About why Natalie was treated so differently tonight. About comments some people overheard. She looks directly at Cassandra. Someone heard part of our conversation earlier. About the seating arrangements. Cassandra's face goes white. What conversation? You know what conversation, Jessica says quietly. Several people heard you talking about your plans for the evening. The implication is clear, Cassandra's cruel scheming hasn't been as secret as she thought. This is ridiculous, Cassandra says, but her voice sounds hollow. It's my wedding day. I shouldn't have to defend myself to anyone. You shouldn't have to, Ryan agrees. But when you deliberately hurt family members, people notice. And they talk. Dorothy Blackwood, the woman Harrison and I spoke with earlier, approaches our table with her husband George. She looks apologetic but determined. I'm sorry to interrupt, she says, but Ryan, there's something you should know. Several of us have been discussing the treatment of your sister-in-law tonight, and we're quite concerned. Concerned about what? Cassandra asks, though she clearly doesn't want to hear the answer. About what appears to be deliberate exclusion and humiliation of a family member at what should be a celebration, George says bluntly. It's not the kind of behavior we expected to see at your wedding. I watch Cassandra's face cycle through several emotions, anger, embarrassment, denial, and finally something that might be recognition of how badly she's miscalculated. Mrs. Blackwood, Mom begins, I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Dorothy says firmly. We heard the comments about table placement, we saw the photo delays, and we witnessed the bouquet incident. This young woman, she gestures to me, has conducted herself with remarkable grace under circumstances that would have sent most people home hours ago. Harrison speaks up. Natalie has been nothing but professional and pleasant all evening, despite being systematically excluded from her own sister's celebration. That's not true, Cassandra protests weakly. Which part isn't true? Ryan asks, and I can see him processing everything he's learned in the past few minutes. The systematic exclusion, or Natalie's grace in handling it? Cassandra doesn't answer, because we all know both parts are accurate. I think, Dad says heavily, we owe Natalie an apology. A significant one. We owe her more than that, Mom adds, wiping her eyes. We owe her 31 years of apologies. The admission seems to break something open in the conversation. People start speaking over each other, Ryan expressing disappointment in Cassandra's behavior, my parents acknowledging their role in enabling her, Dorothy and George offering support, Jessica trying to defend her friend while clearly uncomfortable with what she's witnessed. Through it all, I remain remarkably calm. The chaos swirling around me feels distant, like I'm watching it happen to someone else. Harrison's presence beside me is steadying, but more than that, I realize I don't need anyone else's validation anymore. Cassandra's mask has fallen completely, and everyone can see what I've been dealing with for decades. I say finally, and my voice cuts through the overlapping conversations, we should let Cassandra and Ryan enjoy the rest of their wedding reception. Everyone turns to look at me in surprise. This is their celebration, I continue. I don't want to spend any more of it discussing family dysfunction. But we need to address this, Dad insists. We do, I agree. But not here, not tonight. Cassandra has made her feelings about me very clear, and I've finally accepted them. Now I think we should all move on and let the happy couple dance with their guests. The maturity of my response seems to shame everyone except Harrison, who nods approvingly. That's very generous of you, Ryan says quietly. It's not generosity, I clarify. It's self-preservation. I'm not going to spend another minute of my life trying to earn approval from someone who's determined not to give it. Cassandra looks stricken by this statement, as if she's finally realizing what she's lost. Natalie, she begins, maybe we could. No, I say gently but firmly. We couldn't. Not tonight, probably not ever. But that's okay. We can be civil family members without being close sisters. I stand up, still holding the bouquet that Harrison caught for me earlier. I'm going to head home now, I announce. Cassandra, congratulations on your marriage. I hope you and Ryan have a wonderful life together. As I turn to leave, Harrison stands as well. Mind if I walk you out, he asks. I'd like that very much. As we make our way toward the exit, I hear Ryan's voice behind us, quiet but firm. Cassandra, we need to talk. I don't look back to see her reaction. For the first time in my adult life, her response isn't my responsibility. 6 months later, I'm sitting in the conference room of my expanded office space, reviewing quarterly reports with my team of 8 developers. TechFlow Solutions has grown significantly since the wedding, partly due to the business connections I made that night, but mostly because I finally stopped hiding my capabilities behind false modesty. Dorothy and George Blackwood became my first major consulting clients, and their hotel chain modernization project led to referrals throughout the hospitality industry. The contract with Ryan's business associate Marcus opened doors in the financial sector. What started as polite conversations at a wedding reception has evolved into a thriving specialized practice. The Morrison account wants to extend their contract for another year, my project manager Kim announces, sliding a folder across the table. They're specifically requesting you to lead their next phase of development. I review the numbers, allowing myself a moment of satisfaction. A year ago, I would have downplayed this success, found ways to minimize my role or deflect credit to my team. Now I simply acknowledge what I've accomplished. Set up a meeting for next week, I tell Kim. We'll discuss their expansion goals and see how we can support them. After the team disperses, I check my phone and find a text from Harrison. We've been dating officially for 4 months now, though we started as friends who understood each other's family complexities. Our relationship has grown naturally from that foundation of mutual respect and shared experience. Dinner tonight? I have news about the Portland contract. Harrison's consulting business has also expanded recently. We've discovered that our professional lives complement each other well. He handles the business process side of technology implementation while I focus on the technical development. We've even collaborated on a few projects, creating solutions neither of us could have developed alone. I'm typing my response when my phone rings. Mom's name appears on the screen, and I hesitate for a moment before answering. Our relationship has been slowly rebuilding since the wedding, but it requires careful navigation. Hi, Mom. Natalie, honey, I wanted to let you know that we received your invitation to the office warming party next weekend. Dad and I are planning to attend, if that's all right with you. The tentative tone in her voice reflects how much our dynamic has shifted. My parents no longer assume they're welcome in my life, they ask. It's a small change that represents something much larger. Of course it's all right. I'm glad you want to come. There's a pause before Mom continues. Will Cassandra be there? I invited her, I say carefully. Whether she comes is her choice. The relationship between Cassandra and me has remained distant but civil since the wedding. We exchange birthday cards and holiday greetings, attend family gatherings when necessary, and maintain the basic courtesy that blood relations require. But the deep sisterly bond one once hoped for is gone, and I've made peace with that loss. She's been asking about you, Mom says. Wondering if you'd be open to having coffee sometime. She knows how to reach me if she wants to talk, I reply. It's not hostility, it's simply an acknowledgement that if Cassandra wants to repair our relationship, the initiative needs to come from her. I understand. I hope someday you girls can find your way back to each other. Maybe, I say, though I'm not sure I believe it. But if it happens, it needs to be genuine. Not just because family pressure or guilt makes her think she should try. After we hang up, I sit quietly in my office, looking out at the city skyline. The space is beautiful, exposed brick walls, large windows, room for growth. It represents everything I've built independently, without waiting for anyone else's approval or permission. My assistant knocks on the door. Natalie? There's someone here to see you. She says she's your sister. My stomach tightens slightly. Cassandra has never visited my office before. Send her in. Cassandra enters wearing a navy business suit that probably costs more than most people's monthly rent. She looks around the office with what appears to be genuine surprise. This is impressive, she says, and for once there's no condescension in her tone. Really impressive. Thank you. I gesture to the chair across from my desk. What brings you here? She sits down carefully, crossing her legs in the practiced way she's perfected for business meetings. I wanted to talk to you about something. About what happened at my wedding. That was 6 months ago, Cassandra. I know. It's taken me this long to figure out what I wanted to say. She pauses, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. I've been in therapy. This surprises me. Cassandra has always been dismissive of psychology and self-reflection. Ryan suggested it after we got back from our honeymoon. He said some things that made me realize I needed to examine my behavior more honestly. I wait for her to continue, not offering reassurance or encouragement. This conversation needs to happen on her terms, with her taking full responsibility for whatever she wants to say. I was cruel to you, she says finally. Not just at the wedding, but for years. Decades, really. And I've been trying to understand why. Have you figured it out? Cassandra is quiet for a long moment. I think I was threatened by you in ways I didn't want to acknowledge. You were always more naturally talented, more genuinely creative, more authentic than I was. I built my life around achievements and appearances, but you seem to just exist comfortably as yourself. The observation is more perceptive than I expected from her. So you tried to make me feel small, I say. Yes. Because when you were confident and successful, it made me question whether my accomplishments were actually meaningful or just performance. She looks around my office again. Seeing this place, hearing about your business growth, realizing that you've built something substantial without needing constant validation, it's forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about myself. What kind of truths? That I've spent my entire adult life competing in games no one else was playing. That I've measured my worth by comparing myself to others instead of by my own standards. That I've hurt people who never deserved it because I was too insecure to see my own value. It's the most self-aware conversation we've ever had, but I'm cautious about reading too much into it. What do you want from me, Cassandra? Nothing, she says, which surprises me. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness or to try to rebuild our relationship. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did, and I'm working to become someone who won't do those things again. That's good. I'm glad you're getting the help you need. Ryan and I are also doing couples counseling. Learning to build a marriage based on supporting each other rather than competing with everyone else. She stands up. I should let you get back to work. As she reaches the door, she turns back. Natalie? For what it's worth, I'm proud of what you've accomplished here. I should have said that years ago. After she leaves, I sit in my office processing the conversation. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was acknowledgement. Recognition. A beginning, maybe, though I'm not sure where it might lead. My phone buzzes with another text from Harrison. Also, my mom wants to know if you're free for dinner Sunday. Fair warning, she's planning to interrogate you about your business plans. I smile, typing back, tell her I look forward to it. Harrison's family has embraced me with the kind of genuine warmth I always hoped to find in my own. His parents ask thoughtful questions about my work, celebrate my successes without minimizing them, and treat me like someone whose opinions and experiences matter. It's shown me what healthy family dynamics can look like. That evening, Harrison and I walk through the park near my apartment, discussing our respective days. He tells me about the Portland contract, a major hotel chain that wants to implement new systems across 15 properties. I share the details of Cassandra's unexpected visit. How do you feel about it? He asks. Hopeful, but realistic, I say. She's acknowledging problems that have existed for decades. That's significant. But acknowledgement isn't the same as change, and one conversation doesn't rebuild a relationship. Smart approach, Harrison agrees. No expectations, but remaining open to possibilities. We stop at a bench overlooking the lake, watching the sunset reflect off the water. 6 months ago, I was sitting at table 12 wondering if I should just leave my sister's wedding early. Now I'm building a life based on my own values and surrounded by people who see and appreciate who I actually am. Do you ever regret how things played out? Harrison asks. I consider the question. No. It was painful, but it was also necessary. I spent 31 years trying to earn love from someone who wasn't capable of giving it. That night taught me to stop waiting for other people's approval to value myself. And now? Now I know the difference between people who support my growth and people who need me to stay small to feel good about themselves. I lean against his shoulder. It's made all the difference. As we walk home, I think about the office warming party next weekend. My parents will be there, proud and supportive in a way they're still learning. Some of my new clients will attend, colleagues who respect my expertise and value my contributions. Harrison will be there, representing the kind of partnership I never knew was possible. Cassandra might come, or she might not. Either way, I'll be fine. For the first time in my adult life, my happiness doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. It's built on my own accomplishments, my own relationships, my own sense of worth. And that, I've discovered, makes all the difference in the world. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.